Well, here we are again, back to Brother Peter. Let's look at the translations that came from the Syriac Bible. Sometime in the 2nd century, a translation was made from the Hebrew Old Testament under Syriac for the Christians in northern Syria. This was what might be called a translation from one sister tongue into another. And while the beautiful pieces of work were rather too freely done to convey the literal text of the original, there are none of the apocryphal books of the Latin Bible in the Syriac version. From this, it will be seen that the early Christian church used the Bible mainly in 3 versions: the Greek Septuagint, and the Latin Vulgate, and the Syriac, and most prominently the valuable texts. And those were the texts. Now, other translations, as Christianizing influences reached out to other people, the Bible was translated in their languages. So we find it was, as people needed it, they translated it from one of these 4 great versions of the time. Hence, we find the Bible of the, it's in Arabic, it's in Ethiopic, it's in Aramean, it's in Gothic, it's in Slavonic, and it's in other border languages. And so the Bible was introduced to England early in the Christian century in one of the Latin versions of the Western Europe, and this was followed later by the Vulgate Latin. Those who expounded the word, of course, and had to interpret it in the language of the early English. Consequently, some pertained of these translations is the Anglo-Saxon tongue remain to this day. And so what he's saying is some of these are still out there today. Let's look at our first English Bible. In the 14th century, Wycliffe, in 1320 to 1384, translated the first English Bible, not from the original Hebrew or Greek, but from the Latin Vulgate, translated of a translation in the 16th century after great opposition, that Tyndale succeeded in printing the German and disputing in England in the New Testament, and the English translation from the Greek, 1526. However, we are confiscated and burned in London. They burned, remember they had the Bible burning in London, and Tyndale remained on the constant, and in 1530 his translation of the Pentateuch appeared in the 1531, the book of Jonah. He was finally kidnapped and imprisoned, strangled, and burned at a stake October 6, 1536, because he translated the Bible into a language that the common people could read. Within a year after his martyrdom, a Bible contained a translation by him of all the books from Genesis to 2 Chronicles, inclusive, we published by authority of Henry 5, 6, 7, 8, Henry VIII. For 5 centuries, his version had shepherded the distinction and style of every other, and the simple subline and the pure language of the authorized version is due to it. For several years, a Bible issues from the processes of Europe, and most prominent being Coverdale's and Matthew's and the Great Bible. We're going to call that a wrap for today, and we will do it again in a little bit.